Hey there, Ezekiel Dasho, and back with another solid for this simple solid series, just drawing and shading and using these blocks as references for these simple solids to practice our techniques. So I've got this pentagonal solid here, and I'm going to start by lightly roughing out the shape. So that would be that face there. That face there, and now the faces are all the same length. And the angles are equal. But due to perspective, they might look a little bit different depending on, obviously where you've placed your block or how you're setting it up. And my perspective on the block is slightly different than the one that the camera is getting, so it may look a little different. So if you're using the block on the camera, on the screen for a reference, just keep in mind that our pictures may look a little bit different, and that's okay. So I'm going to drop down a line, not very far. It's really just a little bit past this corner here. Just a smidge past that. Almost, maybe not even past it. Maybe actually not quite past it. And this line here goes a little bit. Let's see. So then this one runs what I think in a platonic universe, in a perfect geometric universe, would be absolutely parallel. It doesn't look quite parallel for me. There's a little bit of perspective. I don't know if that's an irregularity in the block or if that's perspective. I think I tend to think it's perspective. So we'll drop that like that. And raise it up here. There's a little bit of perspective so that this looks longer than this, even though they measure to about the same. And yeah, so that would do it. So just keeping it simple and similar to the other two form drawings, if you've watched those. Go ahead and start roughing out the shape of the shadow. And then it comes down from about here. Goes about there. And there is this darker shadow here. Looks like it's part of the reflection of the block on the paper. And you'll notice that here there's almost a spot where it's like brighter. There's a little bit of reflection. I'm going to start this time with this face of the block because it's quite dark and it looks quite uniform. For this exercise, I'm using a 2B pencil, but it would work with pretty much whatever pencil you wanted to use. It is a little darker, again, similar to the other shapes we've done. it is a little darker on this lip near the top where it meets the face that's closest to the light source. So this side here, definitely lighter than the dark side. There's some subtle things going on with the light here. There's a little bit of backlighting and reflection on this side, so it would be darker on right about up here. Again, I'm not really drawing lines, I'm just kind of painting with my pencil, brushing. And a very fine, maybe hint of a shadow line under this, just a hair under that side, and then again, very hint of a shadow line. Let's see. So I'm seeing this. There's shadows within the shadows here, and I'm seeing one that kind of angles like that. So I'm just gonna drop that line in there for a reference for later, and start shading this area. So I've got this shape roughly shaded in that direction. Maybe gently go in, hit those little spots that I missed, and we'll start in this direction. See, there's a little more darkness up here than there is down there. And there's this kind of backlighting closer to the shape too. So keep adding a little more value to this shadow here. And there is a little bit of sort of lighter secondary shadow coming from this direction here. Because of the nice angles on this shape, you get a lot of intersections of shadow to look at, and then you could, be as detailed as you want to be, but there's a lot to consider in there. A little bit darker here. We'll get this side here, definitely could use some darkening up for the sake of contrast and for the sake of realism. And So again, the process is very similar to the simpler shapes that we've looked at already. It's almost exactly the same, and it's sort of, it's like that with pretty much everything you draw. You know, into more complex shapes, horses, people, whatever. It's going to just be a matter of looking at it and figuring out the angles and understanding the shadows. And that will really enable you to draw whatever you want to. There's not really much of a difference between drawing a sphere or a, cube or anything like that, this pentagonal solid. There's not much of a difference between drawing that and anything else. It's just looking at it and thinking about it and building it up as you go. And I highly recommend, drawing softly and shading these shapes into existence rather than just charging in with thick lines or hard lines or anything like that, because that, if you use those kind of more forceful, like hard line approaches, and it doesn't really allow you to make changes later or to sort of build it up as you go. You kind of have to just commit to those lines and they're just there. So like this paper, I haven't scored any lines into it. The closest I've gotten to a hard line is down here. And near the end at the finishing touches, you might want to do that just to really accentuate it. So you can see there's a lot of light play happening here. And the thing I think to keep in mind is to look for like these areas where the light bounces around a little more. For instance, on the sort of bottom part here, and in this area here. I suppose that shouldn't be hot white, that should be so I think that'll make an end of this little sketch in the study here. I definitely hope that it was useful to you and that you enjoyed drawing with me today. And I hope to see you again next time for the next shape in my Simple Solid series. And have a wonderful day.